Hey, my darlings. So here we are, beginning of a new season, and we are diving headfirst into quite a big topic. How do we know what is enough? Welcome to the Henny Flynn podcast, the space for deepening self-awareness with profound self-compassion. I'm Henny. I write, coach, and speak about how exploring our inner world can transform how we experience our outer world, all founded on a bedrock of self-love. Settle in and listen and see where the episode takes you. When I was thinking about this topic of how do we know what is enough, there was a line from Love Actually which kept resonating through me that I'm not sure if you remember it, but there's a point where one of the male protagonists who is in love with one of the female protagonists who is married to his best friend declares to her that he loves her, and it's something that he's been hiding for a very long time. And she graciously accepts that he loves her without anything happening. They don't run off into the sunset together. And as he walks away, he says, "Enough. Enough now." And that moment has always struck me as very poignant, even though, it's kind of slightly odd the way that he declares his love to her, but, let's let that go. But that realization, that moment of enough now, I think there's something really powerful about that. And, I often return to this idea of how do we know when enough is enough? How do we know what is enough? And obviously, of course, so many of us hold stories about ourselves not being enough, or in my case, and I know in the case of very many of us, a sense that our enough is a bit too much. So these kinds of stories, they all tie in to, I think, what can be an inability to really recognize what is enough. And I'm sure, psychologically, there'll be lots of reasons for that, because while we keep striving, we keep moving forward, we keep improving, we keep thriving, and we stay alive. So there will be a fundamental core human desire to not be settled with what we have, but to always be looking for something more. However, with the state of the world as it is, and the development of humankind as it is, my feeling is that this kind of constant striving, the constant hustle forward, is not that healthy often. And it can play out in lots of different ways in our lives, ways that we might not necessarily always see. And so I wanted to explore this idea a little bit today. Now, we can often find ourselves feeling or thinking we want a little more or a little less or a lot of something, or a lot more or a lot less, of something. And like I said, it can seem like it's part of human nature to never be quite fully satisfied, because we may think that it's that dissatisfaction that keeps us striving forward. But my sense when I was reflecting on this is that it could also be the thing that keeps us from contentment. And, there are wiser people than me that have written a lot and thought a lot about this concept of contentment, particularly contentment versus happiness. So staying really focused on this concept of enough, how do we know when to accept what is and when to move toward something different? And I think that's one of those spaces, the spaces of the grey, the spaces of the liminal, the space in the in-between, where really we need to tap deeply into our discernment and not just have a mindless urge to constantly be moving forward, and also not to have maybe an unhealthy passivity where we don't do things that would actually really, really benefit us, and maybe be what actually makes us safer. So, as ever with these things, it was a personal experience that really brought this to life for me. So, we've just been away for a few weeks in Vietnam, and we met up with our son. It was beautiful. He's been traveling. He's away for a long time, which is the reason why we took the leap, the plunge to go and see him. So far away. And it was wonderful. And we spent a few days. He came and stayed at the hotel that we were staying at, and it was beautiful. And then when we said goodbye, it broke my heart. It's the only phrase that works. As I walked away from him, I felt like my heart was breaking, and I sobbed and sobbed and sobbed. I'm just going to let Ronnie down. He's sitting on my lap and wants to get down. And it felt like that moment as we walked away was actually the moment that my son left the nest, even though he's been living away from home for years. Something about it struck me deep inside, and it felt like that umbilical cord, was stretched to breaking point. It was horribly painful. I'm not sure if I got this across. I'm sure I have actually, but it was horribly painful. And that's Ronnie shaking, if you can hear that. And of course, that cord, that connection will always be there, but it was hard. We then happened to bump into him in another part of Vietnam, completely by chance. They were there too. And it was so easy breezy, so inconsequential. They arrived, hi, they left, bye. It was super chilled out. And that second goodbye felt really beautiful to me. It felt like a joyous gift. And I journaled afterwards, because then I could feel myself yearning, leaning forward into wanting more. And through that piece of writing, I realized that I had a choice. Of course, we always have choices. And my choice was to make that experience that I just had, the easy breezy experience, not enough. Or I could allow it to be exactly what it was. And then something rather beautiful came to me. And I realized that I also had the choice to make my body like temper. The stuff that mattresses are made of, that stuff that NASA developed for the space missions. I had this choice to make my body like temper so that it could hold the impression of that most recent hug. So that my body could hold the impression of him with love. And then I thought about all the hugs I've ever had with him. Each tiny version of him. Each version of him as he grew. And each hug since he became the man he is at 6'3". And then what came to me is that the body holds the score. If you know that book, by Bessel van der Kolk, and you'll know what I'm referring to. And I'm going to talk a bit more about this concept actually across this season, about the pain, about the body holding the score. There's something around pain banks and self-care savings that I really want to share with you. And often when we talk about this idea of the body holds the score, we're talking about the hidden wounds and the scars that we all carry to some degree. Some of us, with really incredibly challenging wounds, what we might call PTSD. But all of us hold wounds from, different experiences that we've had in life, wounds that salves and ointments can't reach. And it strikes me, we also carry all the hugs filled with love, with laughter and joy that we've ever felt too. Whether those hugs have come from family or friends or brief acquaintances, those moments where you might be on a dance floor and you end up having a dance with somebody and it's just so brilliant that you can't help yourself but hug at the end of it, and then you never see them again. So what started emerging for me is that I think sometimes, often, maybe always, we have a choice in the moments when we're feeling we haven't had enough of someone, which is such a desperately human emotion in a time of grief or separation, that we can perhaps draw our attention to a moment of connection, maybe even recalling a physical connection, a hug, a handhold, sitting close by each other, and allow our body to feel the impression of theirs. And if we can't quite conjure that feeling, that memory of that experience, then we can invite ourselves to imagine that we can. Our imagination is vast and boundless and so powerful that if we release enough and allow it to do its work, then maybe it can help us here too. And I think with this, we can perhaps know that we can choose to keep feeling that feeling if, and it is an if it helps us navigate what we're experiencing in the time without them. And of course, we do the inner work to heal the inner wounds. And yes, it's important that we really notice these and we don't try to cover them up or conceal them in some way, because they will continue to ache and pain us until we bathe them in our most loving attention and tend to them as we wished to have been tended to at the time that they were formed. And so with this inner work, we learn how to gently apply our own metaphorical salves and ointments to heal ourselves, perhaps through working with a guide, someone like me, or through the wisdom of a book, or through the learning of new wisdom. And with this inner work, with this, the significance, the power, the importance of this inner work to heal these inner wounds, it's really important, it's so vital that we don't rush over or brush over the joyful connections that we've had too, as though the pain is more important than the pleasure. And I think that was such a significant learning for me, to recognize that, yes, my heart was breaking because, of course, he's a loved one. And we love to be with our loved ones. Sometimes it can be challenging, but but let's just sort of stay with the idea that we love to be with them. We love to be with our loved ones. And so in a way, by amplifying that, or by only feeling that, I was saying that the pain was more important than the pleasure that I had of that sensation of that hug and all those hugs that I've ever had with him. And it really helped me rebalance and hold space for both the joy and the pain. And I've talked about this before on the podcast. And this idea that the pain is more important than the pleasure, it's such an easy habit to slip into. And, and I say that without judgment of myself or anybody. And really, really vital that to say this isn't about having rose-tinted glasses. What's that phrase that is very commonly used these days? Like spiritual bypassing, almost like compassionate bypassing of what we're really feeling. It's not about that. It's about being with all that we've experienced without wishing it to be more or less than it was. It's about saying enough now. I think as a final thought about that there's something so powerful about the concept of gratitude here too, but I think that's for another episode. So I hope that sparked something for you. And I'm also really, really mindful that, as I talk about my relationship with my son, this isn't obviously anything to do with being a parent. This is about loving somebody, and whether that person is geographically absent or spiritually absent, it is maybe relevant for you to consider, well, what is enough for you? And where are those moments where you can make your body like temper and feel the indentation of the loving connection, and hold yourself safely with love. So, gosh, I did say it was going to be quite a big one as we started. And I'd really love to hear your reflections. I'm so mindful every time I share something here. It is an act of vulnerability, because these thoughts, these experiences, they're explorations for me as much as something that I invite you to explore. So your reflections are always incredibly valuable to me to help me continue to explore an idea or a thought. And of course, nothing is set in stone. We grow and things shift and ebb and flow, and that's all part of this incredibly beautiful journey that we are all on. So, what else is there that I need to share with you? I think the biggest thing is my latest book, Letters of Love, a journaling practice for wisdom and connection, is out now. Hooray, hooray. It's possibly the first time you've heard about it, if unless you're connected with me on Instagram, which would be lovely, by the way, if you want to come and find me on there, at Henny_Flynn. This book is a really beautiful practice in how to connect in with deeper parts of ourselves and of the world around us. These are letters that are unsent, and it is a journaling practice. And within the book, I give lots of guidance and also prompts, and also share some of my own letters that I've written in their full vulnerability. So the book is out for pre-orders and is officially published on the 6th of February this year, 2025. And once it goes out into the world, it will be available at all booksellers. So you can buy it online, you can get it from bookshops. You might need to order it from the bookshop, but you will be able to get it from there. And I can't wait to hear how it is for you to start writing these letters. For me, it's an incredibly powerful practice to connect in, and it's almost like these letters are, it's like a container. Each letter is a container for writing our deepest thoughts, feelings, wisdom. And it's always fascinating to see what comes through. So I hope you're going to really enjoy it, and I'm going to put a link, and I ask you to take a look. And the last thing as well is I get so many messages from people saying how much they love the podcast. And I am asking everybody listening now, as a personal favour to me, to leave a review on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. I think you can leave reviews on Spotify as well. Wherever you love to listen, basically, to leave a review, because it is reviews that really help spread the word. And also, if you love this episode, please share it with somebody else. Again, the world has got a lot of really challenging stuff going on right now. And I think that one of the most beautiful, powerful, courageous things that we can do is to spread joy and love, not with rose-tinted spectacles, but holding the pain and the joy simultaneously. They can coexist. All right, my darlings, I love you. I didn't know I was going to say that, but I do. And I am sending a hug and a wave. So much love.